So hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to solve problem number 443, string compression. So let's try to see what this problem says. So this says that given an array of characters, compress it using certain algorithm. And the algorithm is basically simple, that you start with an empty string, and for each group of consecutive repeating characters, uh, if the length is 1, then you just write the character itself, right? Otherwise, you are going to append the character followed by the length of the number of times it has occurred. Okay, so the compressed string should not be returned separately, but it should be stored in the input array itself. Note that group lengths that are 10 or longer will be split into multiple characters, which means if let's say a occurs 10 times consecutively, you need to replace it with a10, right? So after you are done modifying the input array, return the new length of the array. You must write an algorithm that uses constant extra space. Okay, so these are the three things. Firstly, you need to solve the problem where you have to basically do something like this. So A, B, B, C, C, C. This has to be replaced with A2, B2, C3. Okay, that's number one. Number two, there is a corner case. If A occurs 10 times, then you will write, for example, in this case, you are going to write A one time, so you don't write A1, it's just A, and then B, it occurred 12 times, so you're going to write B12, not 12, okay? So it has to be B12. So that's it. That's the only catch that was there in this problem. And lastly, what we need to focus here, the third thing that we need to focus here is that we need to do it in constant extra space, and you have to modify the input array itself and return the new length. So basically you have to modify, not just modify the array, but also make sure that it is resized correctly, right? Which means we are going to remove or add elements in this array. So let's see how we can go about it. For example, if we are given a string A, B, 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 C, 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 let's say, right? So we know that, so this is, we all know that the solution is going to be A2, B3, C4. I hope this is clear with the problem statement, but the catch here is that you need to modify this string itself. You don't need to create a new string, you have to modify this. And this is not a string, this is basically a list of characters. So this is going to be given to you in input as something like this, right? And you need to return an output, something like this. Okay, which means that you need to change this array, you need to remove this A with a 2, then you need to leave this B as it is, then you need to remove this, replace this B with a 3, you need to delete this B, then you need to leave this C, then you need to replace this C with 4, and you need to delete other characters, right? And then you will reach the desired output. Okay, so that's what we need to do. So we need to not just come up with the solution, but we also need to keep modifying the input itself. So how do we do that? Let's see how we can go about it. Right? Let's take the same example. Okay, so let's say we are at A, right? And if we see that A has occurred consecutively, then we replace this A with the number of times it has occurred. Then we count number of times B has occurred. So we keep one index at the position that we have scanned and another index just for counting, right? So now we are at index B, and then we see that okay, B has occurred 3 times when we, so let's write 3, and then we come here. Now we see that as many times B has occurred, right? We need to keep deleting them. So we remove B from here. Now we are at here, C. Now C is different than A, so our counter again kicks in. We start again counting. So we are at C. We keep counting until we reach end of the array. And now we know that okay, this has occurred 4 times. So now again we are going to do the same thing, increment the index to here and write 4. And now we are going to come here and we need to delete all the all the C's now, consecutive C's, because we have replaced that with 4. So we need to do a erase of this C. Okay, so basically the algorithm is step 1, keep track of previous L character. Step 2, count the occurrences. 3, replace with the count. And also there is a fourth step, remove extra characters after replacement. Now let's quickly do a dry run on another example so that it's clearer to you guys. Okay, so I have taken a different example and let's see how we do it. So like I said, you need to keep track of the previous character. So we always start iterating from the first index. We say that the 0th index is the previous character. So let's keep track of that. So we are at previous equal to A. Okay, and we say that count for A is 1, and then we start iterating right from here. So we keep checking. If the character is equal to previous, then count becomes 2 again, and then we iterate forward. Here again A matches A, count becomes 3. Again we reach here, count becomes 4. Now we reach C and it's not equal. So at this point we are, that's what I said. Now you have to have two counters. One counter is for counting and one counter is for replacement. So now that counter we need to bring here. Okay, and we need to replace this A with the number 4. And then we need to increment it to the next character. And now we need to go to the fourth step after the replacement. We need to remove the same characters until we reach a new character. So we remove A at the third position, then we again remove A at the third position. Now we see that A is no longer there, now we have C. So now previous becomes C, count becomes 1, and we keep the counter pointer here. Okay, so as I said, we have two counters, one for the index and one for counting. So now this goes here. This says that okay, C is same, so counting remains to 2. Now we see that character is different, so we stop. Now we are going to increment the index counter to the next position, and we are going to place it with a 2, and then we move it to the next character, and then we see we want to remove the extra characters, but we see that B is not equal to C, which means there is nothing left to delete now. So now B is the new character, so previous becomes B, count becomes 1, and then we increment the counter to one step ahead. At this point we see that B is not equal to A, so which means that B is the only answer, so we don't need to do anything. Now again our index moves forward, previous becomes A, count becomes 1, and we shift the counter forward and we see A and A are same. Now again we move the counter forward, we see again A and A are same, so counter moves to 3, and now this moves to end of the array. At this point we are going to do the replacement. We move the index to one step forward, we replace it with the count, which is 3, then we do the removal of extra characters, and finally we reach end of the array and we have the answer. Right, so these are the 4 steps that we are going to take, and that's how we are going to make the replacements. I hope it's clear. And now let's quickly code this, what we have just discussed. Right, so yeah, let's see how we are going to solve this. Firstly, array, we take the character previous is equal to 0, then we take int count equal to 1, right? So previous and count are two things, and then we start a while loop. So we have another iterator to iterate. So this is the count. So we need two iterators, right? One is idx, which is set to 0, and one is the counter, right? Let's call that st, which is set to 1. So this is your index counter, and this is your Here is your index and this is your counter. So ST, which means start, abbreviation for that. So this will be used to count the occurrences, and index is the index via which we will do the replacements. So start with this. So while ST is less than chars dot size, while previous is equal to chars ST plus plus CNT plus plus, and then we come out. Like we said, we count. First step is that we count, keep track of previous, then we count, then we replace. Right, so now we have the counter. Firstly, we convert this to a string. String count is equal to 2 string CNT. Okay, and now we need to do the replacement. Right, so how do we replace now? So firstly, once this has been counted, uh, if CNT is greater than 1, then we need to replace, right? In this case, we don't need to do anything. So in this case, we will firstly do IDX plus plus, so that we move to the index where we need to start the replacements with, right? And then we have a while loop, while, and then let's have another equal to 0, while I is less than count dot length, and we replace, and now we are going to replace chars IDX is equal to count plus 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 plus, right? So this is how we replace it. So if it is 10, then it will replace with 10. If it is 100, then it will replace with 100. This is how it is going to replace. Now, after you are done with the replacement, remember the next step is removal of extra characters. So now you also need to remove the extra characters. So now you need to check if while previous is equal to chars IDX. So in that case, you need to do chars dot erase chars dot begin plus IDX. Right? So you keep erasing until you reach an index which is different than the previous character, and at that point you need to reset your counters. So your previous will be equal to chars IDX, counter will be equal to 1, right? And this, you will only do this. Yeah, so you do this, keep erasing. Yeah, let me check that. While I is less than count, I plus plus. Yeah. So here we need to check while IDX is less than chars dot size, and yeah, we need to add the checks, right? So you need to make sure that all the checks are in place. Here also let's add it while is less than chars dot size. Right. And here also we need to have it with if IDX is less than chars dot size, and then we update the previous character and the count, and put things together. Previous encounters are together, and now we can move to the else part. What if this is when count is greater than 1, right? What if count is not greater than 1? Then as we discussed, we move forward and we set previous is equal to, so how would we have moved forward? We would have checked previous is equal to ST, which is not the case, and then you know the counter would be 1, so we don't go here. and at this point we are here, so we need to increment the IDX for sure, right? And then the previous has to be updated to chars IDX, and count has to be initialized to them. Right, so all of these things have to be done, but I think this case will again be under this. And what about the iterator itself, right? What about ST? How does that change? So that keeps moving with along with the counting, and after you're done with the replacement, you just need to make sure that once you have done this, then uh, when you start this ST is equal to IDX plus 1. Right, which makes me feel I think these both things should be outside the jurisdiction of this. Just keep this right. We're just going to copy paste this here. Okay, so IDX plus plus, the previous is equal to this, found equal to 1. And increment this. And now, once you are done, then hopefully you have replaced all your characters, and you need to return size. Right. So now if you see that we have done everything in place, let me elongate this a little for us to see how this has been solved. Right, and let's just quickly see if there are any bugs. Great, so we are able to pass all the test cases. Right, so I'll just quickly submit this. And we encounter a bug. So AAA, which is A3, B2, last. Okay, so this is there. So let's see what we missed. Okay, so I think this might be the problem. We have missed this case. Right, at the end, it goes on for an extra character to count. Let's try to use this test case as well and run. Great, so now we're able to start this. And great, so we are able to submit this problem. And let's see on the requirements, right? Are we using constant extra space? So let's see if we are using what spaces, what things have we declared. So 1 variable, 2 variable, 3 variable, 4 variables we have declared. That's it, all other things are local variables. So we have a constant extra space. What is the time complexity? So you see that the time complexity is linear, order of n, and we have been able to submit this. So great. So that's how we solve this problem. Hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching.